appropriately named. Gator, you went first yesterday. I received today.
All right, Doug, here we go. Question number 1. It's a bit of a touchy subject right now around the NFL and here locally, but I'm going to ask, on a scale of 0 to 10, how much do you think the NFL is, quote, rigged? 0 being not rigged at all, 10 being everything is predetermined.
This is such a good question. I almost want to revisit it later in the show and get people's opinions. And I want everyone to think about what their answer is before we go into it. I think it's a 1. And I am conceding a 1 that I probably would have been a 0 most of my adult life and most of my professional life. I think the way the league has evolved or devolved, what it's changed to, there is a cult of celebrity. And I think it is subconscious treatment by officials. I think this industry, being a business of the NFL, is so incredibly healthy. I find it hard to believe that people would risk federal jail time fixing things. I don't think this league is hard up for money, and I don't think they would break laws to decree from on high that you need to fix results. So I'm not buying conspiracies. I think what happens is subconsciously, like the way Jordan got reffed in the NBA, there are biases. I'm going 1.
Yeah, I'm going to admit, because there are biases, you have to start with a baseline of at least 1. My number is actually 3, because I think there's always been biases towards the better players, and that's automatically leads you towards that direction. Players have always gotten the benefit of the doubt in some cases, and I think it's obvious that some players have been taken care of better than others, whether it was Tom Brady or now it's Patrick Mahomes. But that assistance that the Chiefs got in the game on Sunday night, that's what catapults it to me, because it's obvious. The NFL is covering this up with their officials and telling the officials one thing, hey, don't say it. And so the official says after the game with the pool reporter, no, we didn't hear. We discussed it amongst ourselves. It did not come from New York or from Kansas City in a booth. And yet that's not what they told the coach or the quarterback on the field at the same time. So there's that incongruity, which leads to doubt, which has me at a 3. Do I think that they are flat out fixing games? Not necessarily. I just think that maybe an overzealous moment or two. That's why I only have it at a 3. I'm not, tuning in with the tinfoil to say it's going to be north of 5.
So I've got the same number as you, Gator, 3. And to be honest with you guys, if anybody has anything north of 0, that's just a bad look for the NFL. The fact that Doug has it at number 1 should be sounding alarms everywhere. Because, Doug, you're right. You've been your whole life 0, 0, 0, and now you've been pushed to the edge where you were like, hey, even if it's the slightest, I think something might be up. I think I keep going back to this, guys. Sports aren't real. And just because your emotional reactions to them doesn't make it any more real, It's all entertainment. And I don't think it's scripted like pro wrestling or anything like that. But their version of changing the script is changing the rules, rewriting the rules, right? But that might favor Kansas City or a team like Kansas City. But all of a sudden we're a passing league now, right? What makes things more entertaining, more drama? They do the schedule. They change the playoff format. A bunch of things they do differently. Is a call from New York? I have no idea. But in the end, they're trying to make things more entertaining. And when entertainment's involved, I think you always have to have your eyebrow raised to certain things. All right. Why hasn't there been a dominant team in the NFL this year, Gator?
I think it's 2 things. One, a smaller thing, which is parity. But I think the other thing is a big thing: injuries. Injuries, the ultimate equalizer in sports. It kills teams. You look at the great football teams we have in the NFL that we thought were going to be great. Why aren't they right now? Injuries. They've decimated Kansas City, Baltimore, Buffalo, Philadelphia's been hit by it. The Lions have been hit by injuries. Even before the season began, and obviously what's happened during the season. It's what happens. The other thing is you add lots of young quarterbacks to the mix and plenty of coaching changes, and you're just going to get a mishmash of football anyway without a real front runner. You just don't know what's going to happen.
Injuries are a great equalizer, but I'm going to argue that there is a dominant team. We just don't know who it is yet, and there might be a bit of a changing of the guard given the Chiefs' record, given Baltimore's injuries. Maybe it is the Colts. Maybe it is the winner of the Buccaneers-Lions game that turns out to be this year's dominant team. Someone is about to get hot. I would argue by the end we won't be asking this question.
So I actually agree with a lot of what you said, Gator. This is 2 for 2, man. I think it's just a little bit of its parity, but I think injury is the biggest X factor here. Injuries have always played a huge role, of course, but nowadays more than ever, these players, they just don't seem to be as gritty as they once were in the league. You know, like the littlest injury might sit a guy down for 2 to 3 weeks when before he might have just played through it. I think it's so hard to stay injury-free from week 1 to week 18, which means you can't be dominant from week 1 through week 18. You know, there's going to be these hiccups here and there. And even though there's teams that have 5-1 records, Doug, you speak of the Colts as one of them, they still don't look dominant to me. Now, this is so far, and you may be right at the end where we look back and go, wow, they actually were the dominant team that year. Okay, Cam Ward. He is the 4th consecutive number 1 overall pick that's a quarterback to have his coach fired mid-season. And overall, this has happened 6 times in the last 10 years. Your thoughts on this trend, Doug?
There is no reward for having a long-term plan anymore. And when you're playing a rookie quarterback, you're playing the long game. But it's true in the college level and the pro level, as we've talked about. I don't love it, and I can't figure out why it bothers me so much. But it feels like now you get 30 minutes. And if you're not winning, bye. And I joked the other day, but it's not even really a joke. I think somebody who's on the hot seat is James Franklin for his next job. Because every coach is on the hot seat from day one, it feels like. So there is very little reward for being a coach that drafts a rookie and plays him.
I think part of that's very true. Quarterbacks are thrown to the wolves immediately, well before they're ready. You know, there used to be the debate, hey, do you let them sit for a year and go with a veteran quarterback and let them learn from the sidelines? And that's like thrown out the window. Most of the quarterbacks, it's sink or swim right away, which is really unfair, particularly when you add in that they're thrown to the wolves like that without any kind of offensive line there to protect them. They have no shot without an offensive line. Teams that do not build through the trenches are doomed for failure. So I look at every year and a team that's got a young quarterback, when we go into the draft, hey, and every team is talking about, or at least the media talks about it with them, got to get a receiver. He's got to have someone to throw to. And I'm like, no, you need an offensive line to protect the guy. And until you do that, you're just going to lose a lot of games. You're going to get your quarterback killed.
Yeah, well, the ones paying the prices are these coaches that are getting fired, not the quarterbacks that just got drafted. I think these coaches obviously had awful teams, which led them to the first overall pick. It's not a lottery. You have to earn that first overall pick, which means you had an awful team. So, you know, already that coach, my point is, had something to do with that team being bad. You know what I mean? They're already on the downward trend. And the truth is, ownership, if they don't see enough promise with that new quarterback right away, they're going to cut you loose. And so, unfortunately for these coaches, they have to do both. They got to develop and they got to win right away. And it's just too hard to do nowadays. And you see it that these owners, they don't have the patience anymore. The Bengals host the Steelers tonight, which means we get a 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers versus a 40-year-old Joe Flacco. Some are calling this the Icy Hot Bowl. Is this impressive or just sad?
I think it's somewhere in between. I think there's somebody said for having a game that featuring 2 quarterbacks over the age of 40 that are starting. I think Aaron Rodgers, as much as I can't stand Aaron Rodgers, he's still a quality starting quarterback. He's been fine for the Steelers this year. Look, is he the MVP Aaron Rodgers anymore? No, he's not. But he's still better than lots of quarterbacks that are in the NFL, including the guy he's playing against, Joe Flacco. But it's not Flacco's fault that he's still the teams are still deciding to start him. I mean, he's hanging around the league because he's professional. He goes about his business quickly. He can pick up an offense quickly, as evident by being with the team for like 3 days and he's starting. Really, it's the case of Joe Flacco right now. It's just a case of ineptitude, whether it was in Cleveland naming him the starter there or, you know, picking him up in Cincinnati. That's what they're going to hang their hat on while, you know, Joe Burrow heals up. I think it's just it's a little bit of both there. I think you've got the good and the bad with both quarterbacks.
I'm impressed. The quarterback position's wild, and I always spin things, how does it affect us? This can happen, and it happens because quarterbacks, if they stay healthy, can play this game at a high level for a long time, which means another decade of Jared Goff.
I think this is sad. If you don't have a decent QB, you end up with a young, not ready QB like we talked about earlier, or an old wash-up QB like we got right now. And we've got a matchup between the darkness retreat and the senior living retreat. Okay, I actually heard they took one of those senior group tour buses to the stadium, not the actual nice buses that players take. And rumor also has it they wanted to start the game at 4:30 so they get that early bird supper ball. I'm serious. They should be calling out bingo numbers, not plays. Come on, man. I feel bad for the fan bases. All right, we're about 1/3 away through the NFL season. What's been the biggest surprise to you so far?
To me, it's the Indianapolis Colts being 5-1. They have the best record in football through 6 games. They're tied with Tampa Bay with that record, and I cannot believe it because it's with Daniel Jones as their quarterback. I don't think Daniel Jones is some new messiah. I think for whatever reason, it's just worked out there in Indianapolis. They've got a good offensive line. They got a great running back, and they have a sneaky good defense on that team too. And they've turned this into a 5-1 start, which is way beyond what I thought the Colts were going to be capable of through 6 games.
I'm going to go Saquon Barkley averaging 3.4 yards per carry.
Wow, that is surprising.
Very. I agree with you again, Gator. It has to be the Colts, especially an offense led by Daniel Jones. Say what you will about it. It pains me because I've always said they just need a decent quarterback. They could be better. Like when they had Minshew and all these other guys, they were kind of winning 7, 8, 9 games. Now they have Daniel Jones, and he's led them to a 5-1 record. The Colts have only punted 10 total times this year. They could actually be undefeated if it wasn't for a Mitchell throwing the ball through the end zone and that game versus the Rams. They could have won that one, but they're 5-1. Biggest surprise to me. All right, last one, boys. For the first time in 19 years, 2 left-handed quarterbacks will square off versus one another. Dylan Gabriel goes up against Tua Tagovailoa. Who's your favorite left-handed athlete of all time?
Okay, first of all, this is an awesome random Thursday fact that it's been that long since 2 lefties have faced one another. So I got kid Doug and I got adult Doug since you said all time. As a kid, growing up in Ann Arbor, it was Rick Leach, left-handed quarterback in the 70s. As an adult, it's the most underappreciated
Here we go.
and greatest pure hitter in the history of baseball, Tony Gwynn.
I was expecting you to throw some stats out on Tony Gwynn to make us all in awe because he was the greatest left-handed hitter of all time.
We're due for a break.
I understand. With me, I'll just go with one, and it's Steve Carlton. For me as a kid growing up, and I love the Philadelphia Phillies because when I first started watching baseball, the Phillies were in the NLCS for the first couple years I started watching against the Dodgers, and I love that team, love the jerseys. And Steve Carlton was amazing. In 1972, when he first joined the Phillies after leaving the Cardinals, he won 27 games. He was 27-10 with a 1.97 earned run average. This is after they lowered the pitching mound. Thank you. That's not the amazing stat. The amazing stat of that is that he won 27 of his team's 59 games that year. He was on the worst team in baseball, and he won 27 games.
So it's crazy. We all 3 went baseball players. Guys, I'm rocking the jersey today. Ken Griffey Jr., pretty swing in the history of baseball, if you ask me. So smooth, so effortless. I would wear my hat backwards like most kids would back in the day because of Ken Griffey Jr. I'm generally actually not a fan of lefties, but I actually would imitate him robbing home runs with my right hand because he was a lefty in center field. But Ken Griffey Jr., the kid.
Surprised wasn't Ohtani.
No, well, he hasn't. Yeah, what's he done?
Steve Carlton's such a great call. It is. That's a good call by you. Because Tony Gwynn only went 5 for 21 against Steve Carlton. That's how good Steve Carlton was.
Facts.
And there it is. That concludes the Wide 9 Omaha 4 down around the league blitz thingy.